各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。喺現代城市生活之中塑膠已經係滲透到每一個角落，從餐飲外賣、商品包裝到建築地盤使用嘅各種材料都同佢密不可分。但係當呢一啲嘅塑膠完成咗佢使用使命之後佢又會去到邊一度呢？今日我哋就會同大家一齊走入塑膠嘅另一面，一齊去睇下塑膠廢料背後嘅循環系統。
Providing a key drop-off area for Richmond residents to recycle more items is a key part, and this helps keep valuable resources out of the environment and out of the landfill. And we've definitely seen that with our growing participation rates at the Richmond Recycling Depot. So in 2019, we actually saw an increase of 60% materials collected at the depot. And to put that into perspective, that's in 2019, we accepted about 4,600 tons of recyclables compared to 7,300 tons of recyclables in 2025. And then in the same year, we welcomed on average per day about 801 visitors through the Richmond Recycling Depot, and that equates to about 1.44 visitors per minute. And so this increased participation at the depot shows that Richmond residents are looking to do the right thing, recycle correctly, and our staff and our depot is here to help them with that.
回收站係好多人同循環經濟接觸嘅第一站。當居民將塑膠、電子產品同埋各類可以回收嘅物品帶到呢一度，真正嘅旅程先至係啱啱開始。
So protecting the environment and keeping the community clean is a key part of what we do at the Richmond Recycling Depot. And we're always looking for ways to expand what we accept. We currently accept items in over 30 different product categories, including items such as electronics, butane cylinders, and tires. When it comes to plastics, we accept items in a few different product categories. The first one is our plastic containers recycling stream. So things like takeout food containers or plastic packaging, those can be recycled in the mixed containers stream. We also accept larger plastic items, so things that can't be accepted at the curbside, like plastic toys and laundry baskets. We also accept flexible plastics, so those aren't accepted at your curbside recycling at home, but you can bring them to the depot. So things like chip bags, plastic net bags, and Ziploc bags.
但係將塑膠送到去回收站並唔代表佢已經完成循環。跟住落嚟，佢仲要經過收集、轉運、分類同埋再加工，咁先至能夠真正返到去生產鏈之中。唔係卑詩省呢一套回收網絡，從居民嘅屋企嘅回收桶開始，咁經過多個接收站同埋材料回收廠，最終先至能夠進入再生製造流程。
Once residents place materials into their bin, it's collected by one of our collection partners. It goes to one of over 40 receiving facilities before coming to one of 3 material recovery facilities, such as Urban Impact, where we're here today. Then they're sorted into the different material types and they're baled by type. And then they're sent to a verified end market, so where they're processed into raw materials that ultimately become new products. And 99% of the plastics that we send for recycling actually remain in BC, where they're made into plastic pellets that are then made into new products and packaging.
Ann 高定表示，好多人以為抌咗入回收桶就係結束啦，咁背後其實係一條跨越全省嘅循環鏈。不過，關於塑膠回收，社會上仍然存在唔少疑問。
So one misconception is that the materials are not recycled, they're actually landfilled, and that's absolutely not correct. So everything that we receive gets sorted and baled by type and then sent to verified end markets. We make sure we track the materials so we know exactly what happens to them and where they go. Another thing is that they're sent overseas. And that's not the case for 99% of the plastics that we receive. They're actually processed locally in BC at our local partner Merlin Plastics, where they're made into plastic pellets, which are then sold to manufacturers to make new products. And then another misconception is that sorting doesn't matter because it all goes in the same truck. And sorting absolutely matters. You know, trucks have different compartments to make sure that all the different materials are separated. And then the better quality materials we have, the more access we have to these local end markets to make sure that these materials become new products and, you know, become the circular economy and they stay right here in BC.
卑斯大學資源環境與永續研究所教授 Chan 指出，事實上能夠進入回收系統並唔代表最後一定能夠重新變成新嘅產品。真正完成循環嘅塑膠其實遠比想像中少。
The first one that comes to mind is about the effectiveness of plastic recycling programs. Because in the vast majority of places around the world, plastics are not properly recycled. And that even includes here in British Columbia, where BC is actually one of the world leaders in terms of plastics recycling, but it's still a minority of plastics that we use that get effectively recycled. So across Canada, it's only about 9% of plastics get effectively recycled.
佢直言喺現時嘅塑膠回收更加接近係延長生命，而唔係真正嘅循環再生。
And the other thing is that even when plastics get what we would consider to be recycled, in the sense that the material gets recovered and then reused as something else, in the vast majority of cases, it's not turning back into the same product that it was. That would really be what I would consider to be recycling. What we say about plastics in the current context is that they are downcycled, because they basically go from virgin plastics to one kind of use to, if they get recycled, it's actually into a lower class of use before it, you know, maybe gets a third life as something else, but usually it's only a couple of cycles before then it goes into the landfill.
另一方面，非牟利環保組織 OceanWise 塑膠實驗室負責人黃雪指出，嗰啲冇被有效咁回收嘅塑膠，除咗最終進入咗堆填區，亦都有部分會喺自然環境之中持續分解，形成另一個近年備受關注嘅議題，就係微塑膠污染。
微塑料其實呢，就是塑料呢，在我們就是生活當中處處可見的。然後所謂的微塑料，其實分它的定義是在5毫米以下，然後1到1微米之間，這就是對它的大小的一個定義。然後呢，微塑料其實有2種形式存在的，一種我們叫做原生的微塑料。這種原生的微塑料呢，就是它是做成這麼小的，然後呢，它是用來第二步來做成其他的塑料產品的。其實大部分的微塑料在環境當中看到的都是這種第二次生的微塑料。
黃雪指出，相比起塑膠垃圾本身，次生微塑料嘅其中一個主要來源，反而係經常被忽略。
次生的微塑料呢，就是塑料袋或者說塑料包裝，經過在環境當中，比如說太陽照射、UV 的這種照射，然後摩擦，它最後粉碎，只殘留在這種環境當中。然後還有一部分很重要的微塑料呢，它是以纖維形式存在的，就是我們叫微纖維吧。然後微纖維呢，它主要就是從這個織物，就是和大家生活當中最密切的就是我們穿的衣服。然後紡織品地毯就是所有的這些紡織品，它在比如說在使用當中你穿着當中，還有大部分的情況下呢，是在你洗衣服的當中，然後它會一點一點掉，就是它上面的那些東西會掉下來，然後這個過程當中會產生大量的這種微塑料。
Chan 指出，塑膠之所以無處不在，正係因為佢早已經深入咗生活嘅每一個角落。而人類長期大量使用，亦都令到呢一啲嘅微塑膠幾乎無可避免咁進入環境。
Now, the problem with that is that we don't even need to ingest the microplastics themselves to be exposed to the dangerous chemicals. So if you imagine you eat seafood, you've got phytoplankton and zooplankton that are taking in these microplastics. They're getting the chemicals that are associated with that, and then maybe the plankton gets eaten by, say, a small fish, and then the small fish gets eaten by a salmon. By the time that the salmon is eating the smaller fish, it's absorbing the chemicals, whether the microplastics are there or not. And we get that burden, right, if we eat the salmon. So the second misconception is if you're not eating microplastics, you're not exposed to the risks, and that's false. You are exposed to the risks associated with microplastics, whether you eat the plastics themselves or not, which is basically unavoidable, but it's the chemicals that go with them.
面對呢一項嘅新興污染，唔少團體開始將焦點放喺源頭減量。目前已經有學生團體發起請願，要求當局強制喺本國銷售嘅洗衣機加裝微纖維過濾裝置，希望從源頭去減少微塑膠排放。不過，從技術發展到政策落實，仍然有一段漫長嘅路要走。黃雪亦都表示，除咗推動洗衣機加裝微纖維過濾器，改善污水處理技術，點樣令到製造商喺產品設計階段就將環境成本納入考量，亦都成為下一步嘅重要課題。
感覺環境就是微塑料這塊的法律法規的和控制，我們只能說任重道遠吧。其實科技已經達到了，就是說怎麼樣去控制這個，怎麼樣去就是濾芯的方法使用啊，還有說污水處理廠的這種科技都其實都是已經達到的，但是現在因為你還沒有看到它的長期的影響，就是說很多的東西都是看到它短期可能沒有達到我們想象中的那種。就是災難性的影響，或者說就是短期之內，它可能不會對你造成什麼樣子的健康上的影響，或者是怎樣的影響，所以這東西不着急。但是問題是，如果要是不管它會大量的產生，然後還有一個經濟效益的問題，就是說我們是不是一直我們在跟這個manufacturer lobby， 然後跟這個 appliances industry lobbying， 就是說一直在討論這個問題，我們能不能夠達成一個 at the same value same level， 就是說大家both agree。當然，我們並不是說要讓你提高多大的這個生產成本，但是當你在做下一次這種生產成本的這個企業產品的這個結構的這個設計的時候，能不能把環境問題也考慮進去？這個是一個很長的路程吧，應該說。
除咗家庭日常消費之外啊，建築行業咧其實亦都係塑膠使用廢氣嘅重要來源之一。但係呢一部分咧就往往咧較少被注意到。呢一啲嚟自地盤嘅塑膠廢料啊，最終係點樣進入回收系統㗎啦？甚至係被重新利用啦。我哋下一節翻嚟再睇。喺城市持續發展嘅過程之中啊，建築地盤所產生嘅塑膠廢物數量龐大。而過去啊，呢一啲嘅材料咧，往往就被直接丟棄或者係低效咁處理。隨住循環經濟理念嘅推動，一啲新嘅回收以及再利用模式咧，正在逐步出現，嘗試去改變呢一個現象。
It's big, not only when you're demoing existing sites and having all of that waste, but also when you're bringing in new materials. Everything gets wrapped in plastic to protect it when it's shipping. There's also large pipes, plastic pipes that need to get recycled and aren't used anymore. And so when I was on site and talking to other people on site, you hear of all these materials getting thrown out every single day. So it's definitely a big issue.
建築公司項目經理 Alicia Welch 表示，建築地盤生產嘅塑膠種類繁多，包括包裝膜、保護套以及塑膠管道等等。過去唔少都會隨住建築廢料一同棄置。現時就有團體嘗試將呢一啲嘅材料另外收集處理。
Yeah, so we collect all these materials. It could be like this plastic film. It could be these thick pipes. And all of this, and then we send it to a recycling partner, or the program does, not us. and they can kind of melt down all the materials and they grind it into these pellets. This is my plastics nerd coming out, and then send it to the injection molding facility. And so from there, they create these little balls that out of plastic that can be used in concrete reinforcing, and that's how it can become the circular economy.
佢直言塑膠能否再利用，關鍵並唔只係於後續嘅處理技術，更加係取決於喺工程期間是否完成分類。
This is the bin for plastics and how to sort it, and we had great signage up. So people learned, and as they learned where their plastics were going and learned it was being recycling, it's just like a light bulb went off and they felt good about what they were doing. And we were inspired to start can and bottle recycling on site too, because people felt pride in what they were doing with all of their trash and materials. And we were able to recycle cans and bottles, return that money, and then even give back to the school. So it inspired a lot of good giving and more sustainable thinking on site.
Lighthouse 循環創新部門總經理 Gil Yaron 表示，喺地盤已經分類好，只係第一步。下一個問題就係呢一啲嘅塑膠係咪真係具有回收價值，以及係咪有足夠嘅處理能力。
Yeah, there's a very significant opportunity here. Again, it's estimated that about $7 billion of plastic is ending up in landfill. It's lost. It's a lost resource. A large portion of that is coming out of construction. And a lot of this material is clean. It's single-use plastics in the construction sector because most of it is packaging. So you think these large pieces of building materials are coming like skid loads of materials, or could be large mass timber beams. They're all wrapped in plastic. That plastic is clean, it gets taken off and immediately thrown in the garbage. So there's a huge opportunity to capture those materials and repurpose them.
為咗了解建築塑膠嘅流向以及回收可行性 ，Lighthouse 同多個建築項目合作，展開一項為期14個月嘅研究。
The Construction Plastics Initiative was the first project of its kind in Canada to look at capturing plastics that are coming out of the construction sector, tracking them, sorting them, and then reprocessing them into a new product. So we were trying to demonstrate the ability to create a circular economy for plastics coming out of the construction sector. The concern is that there's been a lot of attention on plastics over the last number of years. Most of it has been focused on single-use consumer plastics like plastic bags and knives and forks and things like that, and very little attention given to construction waste, which really is one of the most significant sources of plastic waste. And so this study was meant to kind of look into how we can capture these materials and change them from a waste into a resource, basically.
不過回收只係其中一環，咁材料被收集之後，仲需要揾到新嘅用途，先至形成完整嘅循環。
So this was the first one that we piloted with Lighthouse, where we took their construction plastic initiative pellets and incorporated them into Infina. So Infina itself is a 100% PCR product, so it's made of recycled plastic, typically blue bin material. But for us, it's great to see full circularity when it comes to building products. This project allowed us to actually create a product that was a completely circular product, taking construction plastic waste, putting it back into another building product, which would be incorporated on site.
研究團隊亦都持續咁追蹤呢一批塑膠嘅去向，咁包括點樣加工，以及最後應用喺邊啲產品之上。咁但係並非所有嘅建築塑膠都能夠回收㗎，部分嘅材料因為施工期間受到污染，仍然無法再利用。咁因此，點樣喺源頭做好分類，成為咗整個系統嘅一大挑戰。
The Construction Plastic Initiative ran for 14 months, and we involved 8 construction projects across Metro Vancouver, including schools, infrastructure projects, all kinds of institutional buildings, office retrofits, and even a large, the PNE amphitheater. So real wide range of iconic projects across Metro Vancouver. And the result was that we salvaged and reclaimed 38,000 kilograms of plastic. That plastic was sorted and tracked by the different types of plastics, and we were able to get a really good sense of what types of materials are being generated during a construction project, of which, as other studies have found and our study corroborated, most of it is plastic.
研究亦都發現，並非所有建築塑膠都能夠回收，部分材料因為施工期間受到污染，因此源頭分類成為關鍵。
So single-use plastics that are used for packaging primarily. From the 38,000 kilograms that we collected, about 77% of that was recoverable. The remainder was had various degrees of contamination associated with it, and we learned a lot about when that contamination happens. So there are certain stages in construction that are dirtier than others, and so that plastic can be more contaminated. And so what it also helped us determine is how do you structure collections so that you can make sure that the clean stuff is kept separate from the dirty, and we can recover more plastic that way. Right now, on a construction project, everything gets thrown into one bin and sent to landfill. And so how do we design systems better to collect and sort and separate these materials?
不過佢都指出，要令建築塑膠回收持續進行，單靠企業或者係個別項目並唔足夠，仍有賴政策以及制度去配合。卑斯大學資源環境與永續研究所教授 Kai Chan 就認為，除咗回收制度，循環經濟更加重要嘅係點樣避免塑膠最終流失到自然環境。
So a circular economy would be closing that loop. It would mean that all of the plastics that we put out into the economy, that they're being recovered and that they're getting turned back into other useful things. So in the ideal, in most cases, it'd mean that if we put plastics into water bottles, that we would be capturing those water bottles and that the plastic would be turned back into new water bottles. It doesn't need to be necessarily for it to be a circular economy. It doesn't necessarily need to be turning into new water bottles. It could be turning into something else. But we need to be recovering that material, not just letting it leak out of the system as these particles and chemicals that then do damage to ecosystems and people alike.
而要完成呢一個循環，除咗企業同政府，每一位市民都係不可或缺嘅一環。回收工作嘅起點其實就喺每個家庭。
So the Richmond Recycling Depot is a convenient drop-off point for our Richmond residents to bring items that they aren't able to recycle at home. We accept a lot of other items. Like I mentioned before, things like tires, large appliances, and large plastic items. And the Recycling Depot is actually a proud member of Metro Vancouver and aligns with the regional strategy for recycling in the region. Actually, other Metro Vancouver residents are allowed and available to drop off items at the Richmond Recycling Depot for free as well. But the key part for the Richmond Recycling Depot is increasing accessibility for our Richmond residents and giving them an opportunity and a place to recycle correctly.
從家庭嘅一個回收桶到工地嘅一次分類，再到企業、政府以及製造商共同參與，每一個環節都影響住塑膠是否能夠真正完成循環。
So residents play such an important role in our program. We can't do what we do and manage the materials without resident support. I want to encourage people to keep recycling so that we can, every packaging and paper product that you put in your bins really does make a difference to keep these valuable materials in circulation and out of our landfills and nature.
好啦，今集嘅節目時間呢又差唔多啦。咁如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。我哋嘅電郵地址係 mag26@fairchildtv.com。如果觀眾想上網重溫今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站3w.fairchildtv.com， 點擊節目重溫一欄就可以睇得返㗎啦。下星期呢，我哋會有26分鐘見證實錄精華回顧。咁而新一輯嘅26分鐘見證實錄呢，就將會喺9月中再同大家見面。晚安。